Creative Journeys is your go-to podcast for all things creativity. I'm your co-host, Dave Petrosky, chair of the Communication, Media, and Screen Studies Department.
And I am your co-host, Melanie, Venezuelan designer and educator. This is the podcast about creativity, what it is in its many forms, and how we can become more creative in our everyday lives.
All right, we're back.
We are back, baby. This is the time when we put that audio that is going around in social media.
Yeah.
So excited to be back in the studio. I missed it.
I know. It's been and I was just thinking of different metaphors and stuff, and for some reason the phrase "it's just like falling off a bike" came into my head, which is not the right metaphor.
Not at all.
That's not the way I wanted to start the show.
But you do get that small nervous jitter of oh my God, we're back in the studio. What are we going to say?
Yeah.
What are we going to talk about?
Exactly. We're moving into season 2. Yay!
Yes,
which is really
season
good.
2.
And we, good, restful, relaxing sort of something. No,
we
not
talk
restful.
about a relaxing summer.
No.
Or
no.
restful.
It
was a good summer.
I mean, it was a summer.
Yeah, exactly. It was a summer.
I didn't do any travel or anything like that. So that was something that I would have liked to have done, but didn't get the opportunity to. And
I did travel. I don't know that I would call it travel for fun or pleasure.
Yeah.
I wouldn't consider it vacation time since it was all spent with family and
Right.
getting things together.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Although I did had a fabulous experience.
Yeah.
I'll share this quickly. For the first time, I stayed in a pod. You know those sleeping pods?
Oh.
That are very famous in Asia?
Yeah.
So to go to Venezuela, I went through Cancun. It was also my first time going through Cancun, and they have pods in Cancun.
Huh.
And I had a 12-hour wait in between flights. So I'm like, I'll stay in a pod for 12 hours. I don't mind. It was only like $20.
Huh.
It was a strange but fantastic experience.
That's the coolest thing.
Yes, and they have pods that are singles and doubles. I consider going with a double. I'll splurge a little bit. But no, I ended up going with a single, and at least for me, it was perfect size. There's plenty of room in there. They have a little tray table that you can pull down if you have a laptop or you want to write or something. The only thing is share bathrooms and share lockers. But it was a fantastic experience.
Is it sort of like a berth in if you were on a train or something like you see in the old movies and
exactly.
I'm thinking
that
some
it
like
looks
it hot
like a little sarcophagus. It's like sarcophagus that are stacked on top of each other in a big hallway.
And you have to crawl in.
And you have to crawl in. So the first night I was on the second bunk, so I had to go up to a little steps, open the door. That was a little bit more complicated. The second time around on the way back, I was on the bottom.
What an interesting
So it was
thing.
easier. So I just had to crawl down and kind of go in. It was super interesting.
Was it claustrophobic though?
No, that's what I thought it would be. I was worried about that, but it was not claustrophobic at all. At all. They just ask you to be quiet.
Well, yeah, of course. Everybody's trying to sleep and meditate or whatever it is that they're going to do.
Yeah, but it was fantastic, and it included breakfast.
And the breakfast to boot. That's quite frequently, especially when I'm traveling, going to a conference or something, that's really all I need is just some place to just hang.
Yeah.
Right? I can keep myself occupied, but I really don't want to spend any extra money, right? You have to pay for the pod, but it's not like you're paying for a full hotel room or something like that, which costs,
correct.
several $100s.
Especially if you're not really staying a full day.
Yeah.
I've been unfortunate in the past, I would say 2 years or so, that I have flights with long layovers, very, very long layovers. Yeah. Last year, I was at LAX for 8 hours.
Oh, my gosh.
He was like, what do? You can only do so much.
Yeah, and there's
Sometimes you just want to lay down. Maybe
you
get
can
a
only
massage.
visit the duty-free shop so many times.
But
Yes,
I
I
will
don't need
say
that
was the
extra
most
T-shirt.
interesting thing that happened this
Yeah.
summer.
Okay. Well, I had no such adventures. I was very low key. I did do some prep for classes and that sort of thing. I put some thought into what we might talk about this semester on the podcast, but I didn't necessarily follow through. So, I mean, that's part of our conversation today, right? Is just kind of discussing like what we want season 2 to be.
Yeah, and maybe discuss it with everyone and all of our listeners too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Remember that our email is creativejpodcast@gmail.com, and we're welcoming whatever ideas that you might have for show content and that sort of thing. What we did discuss prior to this discussion. Something like that, was that we wanted to kind of change things up a little bit for season 2. What we, sort of relied on, partly because we were trying to get our bearings and kind of explore things in, sort of in a more immediate way, is we talked basically to faculty on the Southern campus about their own creativity and what their creative projects are and that sort of thing. And, what we had been thinking is that possibly we can sort of shift that a little bit. So we'll still have guests on the show. We don't have one for today, but moving forward, we'll have guests. But what we'd like to do is explore topics rather than like individual histories and that kind of stuff. And then in the process, like tap into some of the things that we're curious about or that people might be dealing with. So our guests could be, it could be other faculty again, but we'd like to get some students in here, maybe some professionals that are in creative fields and that sort of thing. And the other thing is, as I've mentioned before on the podcast, I have a sort of a tenuous relationship with AI. So, we get information from the AI about our guests and the topics that we're going to talk about and all that kind of thing. And then we do some fact checking and then realize that like half the stuff is wrong and all that kind of stuff. But what AI did for us for today is gave some suggestions about topics that we could talk about moving forward. So I thought maybe what we could do is just, talk through a couple of these and see if these are things that might be of interest to us and what we might do with guests that come on or what kind of guests we might have to talk about. Does that make sense?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
I love to see the good and the bad
Right.
of AI. I really do enjoy it.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's,
well, I don't think
let's see
anything.
what's on the list.
The list is, it had five suggestions that it had, and I don't know whether these kind of work, but it just basically gave titles of episodes.
Okay.
All right. So the first one was Empathy, AI, and the Future of Creative Collaboration. It's a big range, right? And it kind of talks to a variety of things that we've talked about in season 1. So that's one idea. Second idea was memory, digital archives, and personal narratives. Now, what I'm starting to see now that I'm actually reading through this list and thinking about it is that it seems like it's sort of looking at our previous episodes and giving us a general summary of topics that we've already discussed.
Maybe let's hear everything, because I feel like that first topic we could break it down into 2, because I can think of a lot of things to say about collaboration, and even on my way here I was looking at a video about Nano Banana and all the things that you can do with it. And my first thought was the collaboration that is currently happening with teams, photography, production, makeup artists, assistants. Now you can do it all in Nano Banana based on the video that I was looking at. Right. I thought about that. But even looking at the hearing about that second topic, I feel like we could do a whole season that focuses just
Just
about
on that, on
memories
memory
and narratives.
Yeah. Third one, which really is it's really like divining what I'm interested in. The third topic was play, risk taking, and unlocking creative potential. That's a big thing for me. We've talked about that before on the podcast, but we've also shared what we do in the classroom and all that kind of stuff. And play is a big part of what my strategy for teaching, right? And trying to incorporate that. So that's something that I definitely would come back to, and maybe not in an explicit episode, but I mean, I'm sure it's going to get woven into our conversations from time to time because it's just like
it's who you are.
It's it's part of me, and I want to share that with everyone. The fourth one is soundscapes, silence, and auditory creativity.
Okay, now I do see that point of like maybe you just gave us a summary. Of what we did last season.
Yeah. So, I think that that's an interesting idea, and we hadn't we talked about it through our guests, but maybe maybe this is giving us an opportunity to kind of probe more deeply into the topic itself that our guests helped us to generate, right? So, is that like a creative direction for our podcast? I don't know, but that's part of this conversation, I guess. The last one, which, I'll just say it and then I'll see what your reaction is. The last one is permaculture, biases, and regenerative design thinking.
That goes along with topic number 1 on that list.
Right, the empathy AI. And and the future collaboration.
I feel like we just got the next 5 seasons written down for us.
That's good. Well, I think it's interesting because it what the AI will do then is give us like an outline of what we can talk about and that kind of thing. Not that that's going to, we want to have our podcast dictated by what AI is telling us, but I made a point of this in class the other day that. What AI is really good at is, and when we're talking about generative AI, we're talking about creating ideas, right? And how do we get our ideas? And if we're stuck, AI is a great tool for helping us to get unstuck because it gives us different hooks that we can kind of play into and figure out. So, maybe as we're talking through this, this is sort of an object example of how AI can help with the creative process. In our case, we're trying to figure out the content of our podcast season. But when it really comes down to it, what is it doing for us? Well, it's giving us some suggestions that might be either directly or tangentially connected to the things that we're interested in, the things we've talked about on our podcast in the past and that kind of thing. It's interesting because it mimics some sort of intuitiveness because it's sort of looking for patterns and things and associations. So then what we wind up with is a list that seems like, it knows me. It understands my, my inner thoughts or whatever. And like what I said with the play, it's sort of, it seems like it's intuiting that this is going to be important to me. But really all it's doing is mining the things that I've said before. So I think that, I think a lot of people have the impression that it's just generating ideas out of nothing, and it's really not. So when you're using AI to brainstorm or something like that, it's actually giving you just a more thorough understanding of your own ideas, or at least that's what it could be doing.
Correct, and I agree with you that it's a great brainstorming tool.
Yeah.
Especially for people that feel a little bit stuck or they feel the need of maybe having a second opinion.
Yep.
And AI can provide that, and it really just puts your words back at you in a different way. but it's the same ideas and the same concept, and maybe just expanding it a little bit more.
Yeah.
So I don't see the problems with it, of using it for brainstorming and just to gather your thoughts. Again, practicality, workflow development.
Well, and I think some of the objections are, also coming from folks that are basically saying that AI is, sort of taking intellectual property or ideas or even, the essence of their artistic endeavors and co-opting that and making it part of a database that the AI is going to then appropriate into the suggestions that it's giving and the art that it creates and that sort of thing. And I think that there's it's a different kind of thing that I'm talking about in terms of the use of AI, because in our case, or what this example that we're providing, we're talking about generating fuel and ideas that we are then going to build off of and do something creative with, and we're going to ultimately be making those decisions and that sort of thing. Whereas AI for generating art or images and that kind of stuff is kind of co-opting the artistic process, right? And it's kind of taking out that.
I mean, it's all about, with everything, not with just AI, right? Like we could use this platform for bad.
Right.
And put out mean intentions or like malicious content, right?
Right.
So anything can be used for the wrong things, just like AI can be used for the wrong things. But it's all about understanding the ethics, understanding the bias part of it, and using it in an ethical, professional way, whether it is to create content or even to create images, because, we're not creating or generating images, but we could use it for work-related things. We could use it to make mock-ups, right? So, like, maybe young designers can't afford to pay to rent a photo studio to take photos of their work, or they can't afford to buy their own digital camera and buy their own light box. But with AI, they can now, with a simple prompt, just say like, hey, here's my artwork. I want you to make me a mock-up of this in a cup or in a notebook, or I created this for a coffee shop. Can you make it look like it's actually a coffee shop and make their portfolios stand out a little bit better, right? With, like, in our times, we had to do everything. And
well, and it's kind of interesting because the what I noticed over time was that when I was trying to get the students to do that very thing, like, and just say, okay, well, there's a business card. And, if you just have that on a blank background, a business card's just a rectangle, and it could be a business card, but it could be a billboard, or it could be, a million other promotional materials, a refrigerator magnet, whatever it is, right? And the thing that was happening with the industry was that companies were essentially making templates and plugins for Photoshop that you could take a piece of art that you had created in one of the Adobe products and then just drop it in, and then it would put it into that particular context, and it would look pretty seamless. So that's been going on for years. And now with AI, folks are like sort of freaking out about this, but it was something that we had already been doing. So what is it that is making people more upset? Is it that it's separating out the creative endeavor from the presentational component, or is it
I
just
think
bypassing our own agency as artists?
I think it's bypassing our own agency as artists and taking away someone's income, right? Because yes, you can find some of these templates for free, but it's very minimal. Most of the time, you do have to pay a fee for the specific template, or you have to pay a monthly subscription to a website that offers templates.
Right.
So what are we bypassing really? We're
Right.
bypassing this business that is no longer making this amount of money because now people can do it with AI and they can pay the monthly subscription
Right.
for the AI instead of the design service.
And you know, I get that, but the same thing that I'm thinking about is, well, what about those template people, right? Or when they created their businesses, aren't they putting out of work the artists that would have been able to do that work, right?
That's true also.
And I think that's it's sort of like this cycle of where does art and creativity fit into a business model, and that I think is what's somewhat problematic is that we're what AI is doing is sort of blurring the lines of that sort of commercial endeavor, and making it so that you know, the intermediaries that might come along the way that might have jobs are getting sort of either skipped or diverted. You know, we have to look to other places to get content from. And I mean, I would imagine, you know, at this point, like, you know, there are tons of workshops online and that sort of thing that are talking about like how to create a good prompt for AI and that sort of thing. And how do you get a good result? And you could spend all day trying to get the perfect image from AI, because a lot of, you know, and
I still haven't perfected it.
Oh, and it's terrible because it's you know, it tends to have diminishing returns, especially with images that it creates, because you know, you can have like, you know, and this is sort of the difference between working with an artist and working with AI, is that you can give it a direction and say, okay, well, you know, I want you to take this element from the third version that you created and this element from the fifth one that you created, and then make it into, you know, sort of combine those ideas and then make it into something that's more balanced or fluid between those two ideas. And the artist is going to give you something that's reasonable, or is a sort of a balanced imagining of how those things are combined, whereas AI will just like randomly put those things together and ruin the previous drafts. And the more that you tell it to correct, the worse it gets, because it deviates, you know, and that's where it's at this point. So it's really difficult to get things perfect. And those that are able to make like sort of these polished images and that kind of stuff, they're perfecting a skill that not everybody is going to have, or the patience.
I don't have the patience for it.
Because it is a little like working with toddlers, you know.
I don't have that experience.
But just giving, you know, and you know, you know, a toddler has, you know, can be drawing a picture or whatever, and then, you know, like they're basically drawing stream of consciousness kind of a thing, and you say, oh well, you know, I would like this to have sunshine or whatever, right? And then, you know, okay, I'll just add that to the picture, and they'll draw that in. And then you say, well, you know, maybe there's clouds. Okay, well, let me scribble that on the page, right? And it just keeps adding things on to the same page, rather than sort of drawing a new picture and reinventing it, or kind of coming up with it. And that's where AI is at, in my, you know, my point of view in terms of creating art. Is we had to, you know, sort of hold it by the hand and be very explicit about how to do it. Because that's, you know, if you told a toddler, now create a new picture and take these elements and make it so that the clouds and the sun are there in the picture and it's sort of balanced in the composition or whatever. Not that I would say composition to a toddler or anything but that. But I think that's where it's at this point, and I think that you know, we need to have more. We're kind of missing the process of understanding the technology as part of our creative activity, in favor of what are the gains and losses.
But I think we repeat history over and over again.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because with every advance, there's the fear, there's the rejection. And there is that same, I can make the same comment that you just did. We are not understanding the technology for everything.
Right.
When smartphones came out, when websites came out, so many other things.
It was, it's interesting that, because I recently, for one of my classes, was looking at some clips from Steve Jobs doing like keynote addresses for Apple, and I looked at the keynote where he introduced the iPhone initially, and it was really interesting because I really never paid that close attention to. I remember it happening, but I didn't remember any of the content. But one of the things that he does at the very beginning is saying, okay, well, we're rolling this out, and we have 3 new things that we want to introduce. We got an iPod, for music, and it's got this sort of revolutionary kind of way of thinking about music, and then we've got a phone that does this, and then we've got the internet, and then he starts to cycle it through, and then he starts getting quicker and quicker with how he's like talking about those 3 separate items, and he said like iPod, phone, internet. iPod, phone, internet. And then he's like, you get where I'm going with this. And then he said, all of these 3 things are one product, the iPhone. And that, I don't know, it just is a really interesting sort of way of thinking about like how we position technology, right? Like in order to get people to get the revolution of the iPhone, he was tapping into things that they were familiar with, and getting them excited about those things, and basically saying, okay, well, here's this particular one product that we have that you guys like already, and it's great, but we're making it better. And then here's this phone, which we're sort of reinventing the idea of what a phone can be, and then internet. Well, no phones are doing internet at this point. And then starts to collapse that, so that it was very interesting sort of discussion. But
and that's a little bit of how I explain AI to the students sometimes too, the ones that are very hesitant to try it out or to delve in it, and just break it down into like, okay, here's an example in Photoshop. Here's an example in Illustrator.
Right.
You have been doing this for years already. This is AI.
Yeah.
You just hadn't noticed. In your classes, you use Grammarly. You use citation tools. Those are all AI.
Yeah, really.
But at the moment, they were not sold to you as AI. They were just sold to you as a plugin.
Yeah.
Or this is going to make Word easier. Or this tool now, you can just click remove background and the background is done. Now that you see that it's AI, it's creating sort of like this conflict.
Yeah, and it's infusing those tools. Well, maybe that's part of the problem, is that it's infusing the tools or making the steps that required some sense of mastery in terms of controlling the tool, so that they collapse into a single thing that's out of the control of the artist or the person that's doing the creating. And I think that's also part of it, is that we don't do well when we're releasing control, especially our creative control. And I think that's part of what AI is representing, is that whole idea of, well, who am I as an author, as a creator, if AI is going to do all this for me, right? And this is part of the objection for people that teach writing classes and students using AI to write their papers and that sort of thing. Well, what I would say is that sort of thing, is sort of the growing pains of what we're talking about, is trying to sort of reconcile that and what becomes original ideas and what are you passing off. I mean, basically the default is you're going to use this the same way that you used your classmates to write a paper for you, right? So we have 80s movies where they're, somebody's paying the smart student to create the essay or whatever.
I did architectural drawings in high school, and I collected money for it.
Well, there you go.
I did it.
That's it. So it's and that's what we go to by default. But I think that part of it is trying to reconcile what we're actually going to what we can actually learn about these technologies that's going to be helpful and constructive. So if that's the bad thing about it, well, what's the counterpoint? Like, what's the good thing? Like, how is this going to help us? And if we can focus on the utility of it to make it, and I'm not necessarily coming across as I probably am coming across as a huge AI advocate, and I'm not. I'm skeptical. Because I think that there are a lot of problems with it, and I do sympathize with the folks that say, well, it's ruining the way that we educate and all that kind of thing. But at the same time, I also don't think that we need to throw it out or just be dismissive of it because it's got problems.
Right. It's okay to be neutral party.
Well, and I think that there has to be a space for exploration, right?
Yes.
I mean, and just figuring out how to use AI, isn't that a creative endeavor, right? So even the way that we started the show by figuring out like what our topics are going to be, that's trying to tap into sort of this innocuous. It seems like it's innocuous, and it's not necessarily that far from our own conversations because it's actually drawing from the things that we've actually said.
And I will actually be curious if we could use AI, not necessarily to tap into the conversations, but to analyze our episodes, see what got the most views, what got the most comments, what were the topics or the themes that center in those specific episodes, or maybe it was one episode that had standout comments and reviews, and for us to go back and analyze that and explore that further. If we were to do that by hand, it would take us a long time. But we are able to use the tools that are available at our disposal right now, and that includes AI, to speed up that process.
And it would have taken us a while to just come up with that list. Even if we were doing it, if we were doing it ourselves, we would have had to like really brainstorm, and we would have had to come up with creative titles and all that kind of stuff. And whereas this is like sort of encapsulating that and saying, hey, does this work for you? So it speeds that up and kind of takes us to where we need to get to in terms of our conversation and that sort of thing. And I think that that's part of what our endeavor with AI is sort of providing a promise for, right? Is that we're actually thinking about the technology not as an adversary, but that's the other thing, is that it's treated as an adversary, but an adversary is also assumes that there's some sort of agency involved and that there's motives and that sort of thing. And AI doesn't have a motive. The people that create the AI might have motives, right? And they might be, part of a money-making machine or whatever. And, I have noticed with the newer versions of ChatGPT that it's always, suggesting, it's giving me good suggestions about what it could do for me next.
Yes.
And a lot of it is driving it towards, do you want me to make a picture of that?
See, mine doesn't do that.
Well, it's like, oh, do you want me to make a PowerPoint of that? I can make you a PowerPoint. And then, you say, oh yeah, sure, do that. And then it says, oh, well, I could refine that even further if you want. Oh yeah, do that. Oh, you've hit your limit. Do you want to subscribe to the service so that you could get your download?
Oh, wow.
So the more that I use it, the more frequently that happens.
Oh, I already pay for a premium subscription, so I don't
so you might you're not running into that. But I mean, it's very much like that's part of it. And
I find it very interesting, and it doesn't happen all the time. This may happen one out of maybe 25 things I may ask. It gives me 2 suggestions. Side by side, option 1 and option 2. And then you have to pick which one.
Yes.
to move forward with.
Yeah, and I mean, initially, I think a lot of that was to do with training the AI, like what's a more valid result and that sort of thing. The problem that I've had is that it'll give me a couple of options, like, do you want this or that? And I want both.
Yeah.
And
want
then it
everything you're suggesting.
And then it gets confused, right? So there's still like work that needs to be done there. But I think we've like kind of figured out our topics.
I was just
right?
gonna say that. I was just waiting for you to finish out your thought and say, like, this just perfectly fit in on topic number 1, and this just became an episode about topic number 1.
So there we go. As we move forward, though, I think having a sort of a topical focus and then bringing in some guests to kind of talk about these sorts of things. I would invite our listeners to come in and into the conversation once again, creativejpodcast@gmail.com. To kind of give us suggestions of the things that we might want to do in our episodes. We've given some, preview, I suppose, as to some of the topics that we might pursue. But we're not limiting ourselves. And as I like to point out to my students all the time, you can use AI to generate ideas, but you don't have to use them.
Correct.
And that's where we're going with the podcast. So I hope that this has been a good conversation for folks. I mean, I always enjoy talking with you.
I know.
So
we can always keep just talking and talking.
I know. If we had hours, we would take up that time. But I think that it's really it's an important thing for us to kind of think about. Is how are we creative? What are we doing with this stuff? And these are some of the challenges that we're kind of struggling with right now in education and in the context of our own work and where academia is going and how to help to educate our students. So I think I'm hoping that this gives some insight to folks about some of the things that we're interested in, and hopefully that will be something that we can carry out throughout the season, and we'll have more engaging kinds of conversations that sort of incorporate more of our audience ideas and feedback.
Yeah, and I was going to add to that I think in this second season you might get a little bit more about what our interests are.
Yeah.
And what our community's interests are.
Right.
As we focus more into specific topics rather than let's explore creativity as a whole and how we all look at creativity together.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to the guests that we're going to have. I'm looking forward to expanding that. It may still be people from Southern. I look forward to having students. I can't wait until we have some students join us and some special guests. I know it already comes to mind a few guests that are going to be visiting Southern this academic year, and I think it would be great if we invite them to the podcast.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent idea. And I have a couple of folks that I would like to talk to that are not maybe folks that ordinarily get in front of a microphone and they're a little shy about that kind of thing, but I think that they have some really great insights and that kind of thing, and they happen to be Southern grads, right?
Wonderful.
Which is great. But there's a couple of folks that I would love to have as guests on the podcast moving forward, because I think it'll be just really good conversation.
Yeah, fantastic.
Well,
this was so exciting.
Yes.
I'm so happy to be back.
Yeah, me too.
Jay, I'm so happy to be back with you too, even though you don't see him in camera.
Yeah.
I saw you look at me when he said, I look forward to having some guests that normally are not on camera.
Right. Yeah. Well,
I don't know what insights I could ever give.
Oh, Jay, you're too humble. You're too humble.
That's just the way I'm bred, I suppose.
Well, you're always welcome to join in the conversation anytime, Jay.
Thank you. I wanted to,
Always.
and then Mike came up and distracted me.
Mike, how could you?
Me.
Mike.
So some of it I missed, but I am sorry, I had a cough drop. I personally am excited to see how we kind of move forward.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great
what we're gonna
season,
be discussing.
and I'm looking forward to some more creative talk.
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right.
Absolutely.
See you next time. And remember, creativejpodcast@gmail.com to give us ideas about where we're going to go in the future of the podcast.
Bye, everyone. See you next episode.
Bye-bye. Creative Journeys is a podcast produced at Southern Connecticut State University by faculty, students, and staff who are interested in exploring our creative potential.